Okay, the try catch finally.
Yes.
So you want us to go over it.
Yes.
So I'm guessing that was under asynchronous JavaScript, right? Hello?
Yeah, hello. What is it?
Yeah, I was like, okay, that was under asynchronous JavaScript, right?
I didn't get you.
Was the try catch finally under asynchronous JavaScript?
Exceptional handling, like the
Okay. Okay, so basically, whenever you're trying to use, let me share my screen. So can you see my screen? Can you see my screen? Rufai, are you here?
yes, I can see.
Okay, so typically, whenever you want to use the try catch method, is in situations when you are using asynchronous JavaScript. That is in situations when you are fetching data, asynchronously. So how it typically works within an asynchronous function. So if you have something that is async, I don't know. That's what I was asking you. Under what topic did they teach you try catch exactly?
That's what I said. Exception handling.
Exception handling.
Yes.
Hmm. Okay,
There was a slide we used that day.
the slide that you guys use that day.
Yes.
Let me look for it. So in case you guys have any other questions, you guys can be thinking about it so that we can just go over that within the next 30 minutes. Okay. Exception handling.
Like, okay.
You say like what?
Like he used to handle errors. And it's,
Okay, do you have the form on your laptop? Could you
yes, sir.
share your screen?
Okay, sir.
Yeah, just share your screen. Let us see what you're talking about. I don't think I have that slide.
Okay. A moment, please.
Okay.
I don't. Can you see my screen now?
Yeah, I can see your screen.
Yeah. Mm. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, it was not really in depth. It was just this slide, yeah.
Yes. Then this is an example we can come. This here. So something like this.
Okay.
So this is the two. This.
Okay. And that was all. Go to the
Yes.
next slide.
Okay.
That was all, Abby.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So just stop sharing your screen.
Okay.
Okay, so for those that are just joining, welcome to today's class. Sorry that I started a bit late. It was my fault. So, Rufai was asking for more clarity on the try catch exception handling. So normally that's going to be taught in depth when you get to asynchronous JavaScript. But basically, the way it works is that in simple terms that I can explain now. So we have a function called, let's say, fetch data. So it basically helps us with error handling. So we then separate our logic in an asynchronous function using the try and catch. So we have try and catch blocks. So let me explain the try block first. The try block is basically the normal logic you want to execute in that function. That's where you put it you put it in the try block. But this catch block now is used for catching errors along the way. In case In case while executing the code within the try block, the JavaScript runs into an error. The error is sent down to this catch block, and in this catch block, you have a parameter that is the error. So if you can write err or just e or error directly. So in this error, you can use this error to do different things. So you can just follow the simplest thing you can do is you can just console.log the error if there's any error at all, right? Then we now have the finally block. So after after all the execution, after all the execution, you want this code to run. Like no matter what happens, whether there's an error or not, at the end of the execution, this thing should happen. It's a very good example of when to use the finally block is when when you're loading something from you're loading something from Twitter. Let me show you for example. So from Twitter now, if I refresh, you see that we have a spinner, right? So that shows loading, is loading content. But just imagine that um so just imagine there's no internet. If there's no internet, for example, let me see if I can stop the network. Um okay, offline. Can you guys see my screen? Can you see my screen? Okay, so yeah. So now that I've turned off the network, if I refresh this page, you notice that we still have the spinner, but after but because there's no connection, the spinner goes off. Imagine a situation where the spinner is always spinning, whether or not we fetch the data. So an example of this finally is that no matter what happens, we want that spinner to disappear. That's an example of when we will use the finally block. You hear me? Whether everything goes well or there's an error, we want the finally to at the finally stage, we want it to stop spinning. We want the loading stage to go to false. You guys understand? That's a typical example. But when you go into asynchronous JavaScript, it's going to be more like it's going to be more detailed explanation on how everything works. So I don't know, is that clear? So basically, the try block is for your normal execution. The catch block takes in an error. It takes in an error argument. It takes in an error argument. So while trying to execute the try block, whenever it runs into an error, the catch block is automatically executed. Then it finally says that, oh, this piece of code, I want it to run whether or not there's an error. So that's how it works in exception handling. So does anybody have any other question on what has been taught so far that you want me to recap on or explain better? Maybe last week, whether in the morning or evening sessions, last week, Tuesday or Thursday. Does anybody have any question? Okay, it will be. It will be. Do you have a question?
No question from my side.
Oh yeah, no. So no problem. Since there's no question, we can go straight to what we have for today. So for today now, we're going to be talking about DOM, DOM manipulation. But what is DOM? DOM is document object model. And under DOM, we're going to be looking at selecting elements, modifying elements, events handling, and we're going to do a little Q&A. Then we're going to have a hands-on session where we will be building a small application. Right? So now, introduction to the DOM. The document object model, or DOM for short, represents all page contents as objects that can be modified. The document object is the main entry point to the page. We can change or create anything on the page using it. So the key concepts in DOM, what are the items that we have in the DOM? We have the document, first of all, which is the root object of the DOM, representing the entire HTML document. The next thing is the element. The element is a node in the DOM tree representing an HTML element, e.g., div, p, image, etc. So if you go to so in our starter code, which I'll make available later, so we can see this is our DOM element. So we have a header here. A header from what we have seen, a header is an element. We also have the H1s, P tags, buttons. These are also elements in the DOM tree. So let's go back to the slide. Then we have the node. This is a generic term for any object in the DOM tree, including elements, attributes, or text. Then we have the tree structure. The DOM represents the document as a hierarchical tree with the document object at the root. So it's just like a tree. So first of all, we have the document. Then under the documents, we have several elements. Then those elements can have sub-elements and so on. Or those elements can have nodes. That's how the DOM tree works. That's how the DOM is structured in HTML. So, so let's visualize it and what is the importance of the DOM. So as I said, we have the document. The document is the root elements here like this. I don't know if I can, okay. Let me see. I want to see if I can. Okay. So we have uh, um, so we have the document. The document is the root element. After the document, we have our HTML. Then the HTML consists of the head and the body, as we can see here. So we have our HTML, which has two sub-children, that is the head and the body. Then the head has the title, then my page, which is the text node. Then we have body. Body has div, UL. The div can have a H1, and the H1 can have this text here. Then the UL has this LI. Then it has its text nodes. So you can see the document node, the element node. This is also an attributes node, an attribute. So the ID is set to div. Then we have a text node here like this. So visualizing the DOM gives us a clearer view of its structure, which helps us to understand better on how to work with the document object model. But why is the DOM important? The DOM allows the JavaScript to, first of all, access and manipulate HTML elements and their properties. Number two, respond to user interactions such as clicks or inputs. Number three, dynamically update the document structure and content. So that is what the DOM helps us to do. Then selecting elements in the DOM. For us to be able to make changes, for us to be able to make changes to style or text to our HTML elements in an HTML document, we first have to be able to select the elements that we want to make changes to before we will be able to implement our change. For this, we have the following ways of selecting elements in DOM. The first way is the documents.getElementsById. So let me show you how that works. So in our script.js, first of all, in our HTML, let's see if we have any IDs. So let's just create an ID here. So let's give this H1. I mean, so let's give this H1 an ID of let's say header, right? An ID of header. So if we want to select an element based on the ID, what we need to do is that if you want to select an element based on your ID, we need to use use documents dot get elements by ID like this. Then you open parentheses, then you pass in the ID that you are trying to access. And from what we said, the ID that we're trying to access is the header ID. So we pass this in header, right? So this is so I've gotten the element. So let's see how that element looks. So let's console.log this and see what it gives us. So the header. So let me open that quickly. Document. Okay. So So yeah, so for the console now, you see that we've console.log this particular element only, and we can see the element tag, the ID, and the text node within it. So this is how you can select elements based on ID. So the next thing that we are going to be looking at is how to select elements based by class name. So by class name. So by class name, we need to, so by class name, we use the query selector, document.query selector. So how does that work? So let's console.log. So we have documents dot query selector, then the way you use the query selector is the same way you used to target elements in your css. So if you want to target a class, you do dot then the class name. So let us use the class of between here. So we use dot between like this. So this targets an element with the class of dot between. So if we refresh, you can see that we have this elements displayed to us on the console. Then, what if you want to select multiple elements? So the way you select multiple elements is, so let me mention another thing. With this query selector, you can also use query selector to select IDs. And the way you do it is that instead of putting dots, you use the ID selector, which is the hashtag. So let's say we want to select header again. So we'll just do hashtag header like this. And if we refresh it, you see that the same H1 is being returned here. So you can see that you can either use getElementsById or querySelector. So the most commonly used one maybe is querySelector for me. I use querySelector to select both classes and IDs, elements with classes and IDs. So you can stick with that. Then what if you want to select multiple elements that have the same class? So the way you do that is we have getElementsByClassName, or you use documents.querySelectorAll. So let's check in our HTML whether we have elements with the same class name that we can make use of. Okay, so yeah, we have two buttons here that have a class name of btn. So we have this button and this button. So what if we want to select the two of them? So the way that will work is that we have console.log documents dot get elements by class name like this. Then we now pass in dot btn. No, we don't need to pass in dots since we know that we're selecting by class name. So we just do btn like this. So if we check it, it's going to return an array for us. So if we refresh, you see we have an array. It's not really an array, it's a HTML collection that has two elements inside of it. So if we open it up, we have all these values pertaining to it. So we have a button with two classes, btn and again, and another button with btn and check. So these are the two elements that we have that have the same class. If you don't, so another alternative is using querySelectorAll. So we have documents dot querySelectorAll. Then we have to pass in dot btn like this. So if we comment this out and we refresh, so we have, so the difference between querySelector and getElementsByClassName is that querySelectorAll returns a node list to us, a node list, which is probably the same thing. So we'll go more into these different types later when we do advanced DOM manipulation. So those are the way you can select elements with DOM manipulation. So I don't know if there's any questions so far on what I've said. Is there any question? Okay, Rufai.
Yes, sir. I don't really have a question, but if you can try and just reduce your pace.
Okay. No problem. Sorry. Okay, but you don't have any question, right?
Yes, I don't have any question.
Okay, no problem. All right. So now what's the next thing that we have? We also have get get elements by tag name. So this is another way you can this is another way you can select multiple elements at once by the tag name. So we can say console.log documents dot get elements by tag name. So this can be button. So this is a tag name. So we're getting all the elements by tag name. Elements by tag name like this. So if you refresh, our page, so we have the different elements by tag name. This also returns a HTML collection. So that's how. So those are the different ways you can select elements in DOM, in the document object model. So the next thing we're going to be looking at is, okay, so we have a more detailed explanation. So the document or get elements by ID returns a single element with the specified ID attributes. So we have an example which we've done before. Then the next thing, the ID attributes must be. So somebody asked a question. Profile.
Yeah, I said I think you skipped the remaining two in the last slide.
There are two remaining two. Which ones?
Okay, okay, no worry, no worry, no worry, sorry. I think I made. Yeah.
Okay. So as I was saying, the ID attributes must be unique within the document. As we all know, we said that IDs are usually, you can only find one ID per page, and that's how it's supposed to be normally. But classes it's the same class can be attached to multiple elements at once. But IDs need to be unique to a particular page at all times. So so once it returns null if no elements within if no elements within the specified ID is found. So that means if you're trying to target an element with a specific ID and that element is not found, it's going to return null to us. Then we have get elements by class name. So it returns all elements within this with the specified class name attributes, as we've talked about before. This returns a HTML collection, which is a live collection of elements. The class attributes can be used multiple times within the document, as I've said previously. Then we have get elements by tag name. The get elements by tag name returns all elements within the specified tag name. So it returns a HTML collection, a live collection of elements. So the tag name is case sensitive. It's case sensitive. So as we said, so with that tag name, you need to pass in the tag, the name of the element itself. The elements such as p tag, a div, or a button, and so on. So we have document or query selector. Query selector returns a single element that matches the specified selector. So it uses CSS selector syntax, as I mentioned before. If you want to target an ID, you need to prefix the ID with a hashtag. But if you want to target a class, you need to prefix it with a period sign, or you can target directly with the tag name. That's what I didn't show you guys before. So with this query selector still, you can also do documents dot query selector, then you pass in header. So whenever there is no period or there is no ID, if there's no period or no ID, it's going to target the elements, the HTML elements. So if we do this and we are targeting a header. So if you come here, you see that um a header is returned here. A header is returned in line 6. So that is how query selector works also for elements. Then it returns null if no element matches the selector. Then we have document or query selector all, which returns all the elements as a node list that matches the specified selector. So it still uses the CSS selector syntax and returns an empty node list if no element matches the selector. So modifying elements properties. So it is not enough. It is not enough to select elements. In fact, the reason why elements are selected is so that their content, styles, or attributes can be changed dynamically. The following are used to modify the properties of elements. So we have inner HTML, text content, style property, set attributes, get attributes. So that is so those are the way that those are the way that you can modify elements properties in JavaScript. So let us look at each of them one by one. So for now, we are going to be only looking at text content. Text content. So, or let's start with text content. Let's say that in our HTML here, let's have a new so under the header, let's have a h4 here, and let's call it pi k here, and let's give this a class of dummy text like this, class of dummy text, right? So in our so in our JavaScript, what we'll do is that let's say let dummy text be equal to documents dot query selector, so dot dummy text like this. So let put camel. Let me change this to camel, please. Dot dummy text like this. So if we go back to our application, and if we refresh, you see that we have this hey, here. It's kind of small. So we have this hey here. So what if we want to change the text? A way we'll do that is that we can just come here and say dummy text dot text content, and we're going to set it equal to my name is James like this. And if we save this and we refresh, you see that the text has changed automatically. So that is how we can manipulate the DOM and the text content within elements, right? So now let's look at inner HTML. How can we change inner HTML? So the way we do that is that in our project, let's use a div here. So in this div, let's give this div a class of dummy div like this, dummy div. And currently this div does not have anything within it. Or let's have a h2 here, and the h2 should say text within dummy div, or we say h1 within dummy div. So if you go back to our application and we refresh, you see that we have it here, h1 within dummy div. But what if we want to change all the elements within that div? So the elements within this div is called its inner HTML, the inner HTML. So how do we change that? So the way we will do that is that we'll say let dummy div be equal to documents dot query selector. I think I should put this side by side. So this is a dummy div. So document dot query selector dot dummy div like this, right? So this is it. So if the way we change the inner HTML, we say dummy div dot inner HTML should be equal to, then within quotation mark, you write the HTML that you want. So instead of a h1, we want a h2 here like this. So h2, and within that h2, you said you now type h2 within dummy div like this. So if you save this, so this is how it is initially. So if we refresh it, you see that we've changed the text, the inner HTML. We can instead of we can even do it in such a way that we can even add more elements within that div. So after the H2, maybe we can have a p tag like this, a p tag, and within that p tag we can say paragraph paragraph within dummy div like this. And if you refresh our page, we can see that we also have a p tag that is rendered in it. And we can also check our console or our developer tool. And if we hover on this div, this particular div, um, I think it should change. Okay, so we have our dummy div here. You see that the DOM has been manipulated and changed, and the text within it has been modified due to DOM manipulation. So that is how you can make use of inner HTML in JavaScript. So far we've talked about text content and inner HTML. Does anybody have any questions regarding those two things for now? Hello, Rufai.
Yes, sir. Please, can you please explain the one for the inner HTML, please?
Okay, so for the inner HTML, you know how in HTML we have parent elements and child elements. So imagine we have a div here. So this div that we have here, and we want to change the content of this div. We want to change the inner HTML of the div. So the inner HTML is basically all the HTML code within a parent element. You get me? So for example, this header, this body tag, right? All the elements within this body tag can be referred to as the body's inner HTML, right? So we want a way that we can manipulate it. Maybe we can change that inner HTML. So the way we'll do that is using the inner HTML elements, right? HTML attributes. So the way you do it is, first of all, you need to select that element that you want to change its inner HTML. Then you now do the element name dot inner HTML. Then you set it to the value that you want. So this is how you do it. So you can even okay. So yes. So this is the way you do it. You said the inner HTML. So for this particular div right now, we've changed the inner HTML. The before the inner okay, let me show you how the inner HTML looks normally. So let's say dummy div dot inner HTML. So let's see initial inner HTML email of dummy div. Like if we save this and go back, so if we refresh and go to our console, you see that the initial HTML of dummy div is this H2, right? That's the initial H2, and that's what we have here, this H2. But we want to manipulate that. That's why we have set a new inner HTML. And if we then come here and console or log it again, you can see that we'll say instead of initial, we'll say final inner HTML, inner HTML. And if we refresh it, you can see that our inner HTML has been modified due to DOM manipulation. So, is that clear now? Okay. So, does anybody have any other question? Does anybody have any question regarding what we have said? Okay. So if there's no question, we can move on to the next thing. So the next thing we have is the style property. The style property. Then we have the set attribute and get attribute. So um, so the style property. So let's still use this dummy div. So the way you do, you say dummy div dot style. Or I'm coming. Let me see how. Okay. So let's say dummy div. Or let's not use dummy div. Let's use dummy text. So let's say dummy text dot style dot let's say color should be equal to let's see let's say black. So that is 00000. So let's see how that works. So if you refresh the page, you see that the text has changed to black here. So that's how you can make use of the style attributes. So apart from color, we can say dummy text dot style dot let's say font size. So make sure instead of normally you do it like this, but that is not the case. You need to use camel casing in DOM manipulation. So you use font size like this, and let's say you want the font size to be 50 pixels like this. So if you save this and we refresh, so you see that the font size has increased. So that's how you can use the style attributes to manipulate elements in the DOM. That is it for the style. So you can use any style that you can think of: font color, font weight, font size, background image, and so on. So that's how you can manipulate the styling of HTML elements within the DOM. So the next thing is the set attributes and get attributes. So for the set attributes, so let's look at the get attributes. So what are attributes? We already looked at attributes before. So in this div now, the attribute that this div has is this class. It has this class attributes. For images, we have attributes such as alt attributes, source attributes, and so on. So those are the different attributes that we can have. So, for example, let's see. Let's say we want this dummy text and we want get attributes. And the attribute that I want to get is the class attributes. So let us my class is like 12, right? Okay. So get attributes. So let's see how get attribute comes out. So if we refresh it, you can see that we've gotten the attributes of the class. I mean, you can see that the class is dummy text. So to make sure that it's actually working, let's change the class. Let's add another class. H1, H4. So if we refresh this page, you can see that all so okay, no, we're doing it in the wrong. So for dummy text, let's see H4, H5. If we save this and refresh, you can see that we have all the class names associated with that particular H1. So we can select the alt attributes, the source attributes, and so on. So you can see how the DOM manipulation works. So because we can access the source attribute of an image, it shows that we can also change the source attribute. That means we can change the image during the application, maybe depending on maybe when a button is clicked or something. So you can see how we can really manipulate our web application with JavaScript using DOM manipulation. So the opportunities are like endless. What you could really do with DOM manipulation can be very how would I say, it can be very extensive. So that's it for get attribute. So let us see if we can actually set an attribute. So the way you do it, you say set attributes like this, and set attribute takes in two. It takes in two arguments. It takes in the attributes you want to change and the value. So when we want to change the class here, we want to change the class to new dummy text, new dummy text class like this. And if we save this now, and if you refresh it, we're not supposed to console or log it. So after we've set the attributes like this, we need to console.log the new class that has been set. So if you do this and check it, so if we now refresh, we now have the new class that is being returned to us. So that is how you can set. So that's how you can get and set attributes in JavaScript. So does anybody have any question regarding how to modify elements properties in DOM so far? Does anybody have any question? Okay, so if anyone has any question, we can move forward. So we've already spoke about the inner HTML. So it gets or sets the HTML content of an element. The syntax is element.innerHTML. So it can be used to set HTML content, including tags and attributes. It can be used to get HTML content of an element. Then we have the text content. It's used to get or set the text content of an element. The syntax is element.textContent. So we have a little example here that you can always refer to. It only gets or sets the text content, ignoring any HTML tags. Can be used to set plain text content. Then we have the style property that is used to manipulate the style of an element. Then we have the set attributes. So it sets the value of an attribute on an element. The syntax is set attributes name, comma, value. This can be used to add new attributes or update existing ones. So we have the get attributes, which returns the specified attributes that we are looking for. Then we have, so the next thing we're going to be looking at is event handling and events. What is event handling? Event handling is the process of responding to events that occur in a web page, such as user interactions, such as clicks, key presses, mouse movements, page loading or page unloading, errors or exceptions. So events are actions that occur on a web page, such as user interactions, page loading or unloading, errors or exceptions. So then what is so yeah. So we have types of events. We have different events. We have mouse events, keyboard events, form events, and page events. So for mouse events, we have the click, we have double click, mouse down, mouse up, mouse over, and mouse out. So for the click events is the normal click that we have in our mouse. The next thing is the double click, which is to double click. Then we have the mouse down and the mouse up. Then we have the mouse over. The mouse over is when you hover on that is when you use your cursor to hover on an element. That triggers the mouse over. Then we have the mouse out. So in this box now, my mouse is within it. But the moment I move my mouse out of the element, it triggers the mouse out event. Then for keyboard events, we have the key down and key up events. We also have the key press events, right? Then we have form events such as submit, reset, or change. Then we have page events, which is the load, unload, or error events. So those are the different events. I will be looking at the most common events that we have. So how do we even do this. We make use of some of things called event listeners. So how does it work? It works by attaching a function to an element that listens for a specific event when the event occurs. The function is executed, allowing us to respond to the event. So let us just do it practical, because it's better to see it in action than talk about it. So for example, in our application, we have, so let me put this side like this. So we have this button again, right? So what if we want an event such that whenever this button is clicked, we want something to happen. So how do we do that? So let us look for that button in our HTML. So that button is represented as, so we can remove this div and this dummy text that we've added before. So for the button, so we have this button again. So button again. So let us select that element. So let's say let's button, let again button be equal to documents dot query selector dot again, like this, right? So now we want to add a click events handler. So the way that works is that you say again button dot add event listener. So this is a method attached to every element in the DOM. So add event listener takes in two attributes. It takes in the events we want to listen for, and the function and the event handler function. So we're going to be listening for a click event. So you put the event in quotation marks like this. So the click event, then we have comma, then the function that we want to run whenever the click happens. So we define a function like this, a function. So here we just do console.log the again button was just clicked, like this. So if we then go back to our browser and we refresh and we clear our console and refresh, okay, 15. Okay, so because we don't have, because we, okay, let me just leave all of this. So it was showing an error. So don't worry. So if you refresh, I'll come in. We still have that error, line 15. Okay. So I think that error should be gone now. So yeah. So if we click this button, you see that we have this text that's already, the function has already been fired up. And if we click it again, it fires off again. We can click it as many times as we want, and that function is always going to be fired up. So now, one thing I want you guys to notice is that in this function that we've defined here, you notice that we are not calling the function. The reason why we are not calling the function is because JavaScript calls the function for us automatically when the click event occurs. So that means we don't need to call the function. And what do I mean? Normally when you were taught functions last week, you were taught that whenever you define a function, you need to call that function. So like this, let's say you have a function called handle. This function cannot call itself. So for you to call that function, you need to run handle like this to call that function. But that is not the way in JavaScript event handling. So the way you do it is that you just define the function, but JavaScript calls that function automatically for you when that event occurs. So that is how it works. So that's how it works. So if you refresh it and you click, you see that the event is fired up automatically. So does anybody have any question regarding event listeners? Is is it clear? If it's clear, can you give a thumbs up? Okay. Yeah. So that's how event listeners work in JavaScript. So what are the other events that we have? I mentioned that we also have something called double click. So double click like this. I think this is how I think this is how you spell it. So DBL click. So if you come back here and we refresh and, and clear it, if we you see that when I clicked once, nothing happened. But if I double click, it comes up. If I double click again, it comes up. But if I just click once, nothing happens. I have to double click it. So that's another event that we have. Another event that we have is the mouse down. So mouse down like this. So I'm not sure how does this mouse is not really common. So let's go back to MDN as I've showed you guys MDN before. So this is JavaScript resource that we can find. So we can search for mouse events. So what does it okay. So let's see events. Introduction to events. So what are the other events that we it's supposed to be every type mouse down. So mouse down events. So the down event is fired as an element when pointing device button is pressed while the pointer is inside the element. So I guess it works the same way as a click event. So yeah. So I'm not really sure how this works. Well, that's it. So it's not really used. So the most common ones are the click, maybe the unchanged, and so on. So as we progress in the boot camp, you see the most commonly used events that are available in JavaScript. So you can also read more documentation on all the other events mentioned. So you can get more familiar with it and you can test it out. So yeah. So for the assignments, I have an assignment for you. I want you guys to find out all the events that you can possibly find out about. So I want you guys to look for at least maybe 25 events, and I want you to write it out in an MDN file. So in an MD file, a Markdown file, writing about each of those events, how they can be fired off, and just write the events and how the events can be fired off. So for example, you can just have an MD file like this events.md. So the way you just do it, you just write number one, click events. Then you write how you write so you click is so this is how click is represented. So for this click event, fired this is fired off when when a when a click happens like this. So this is how I want you to do it for 25 events. So list out all the events and how each of those events are fired off. So does anybody have any questions so far? So since there's no question, we can move on. Um so we have the syntax, then the events, then the function. So we have use capture. So I'm going to explain that later another time. So it's quite advanced. Then we have an example in the slide. Then we have some practice. Some practice. So we're going to leave this now. So we're going to be doing a game right now. Doing a game. So we're going to be doing two things first of all. So we're going to be doing something very simple. So to get the hang of it. Then if there's time, we're going to do another thing. So let's create a simple counter application. So the way you do that is that first of all, just create a new folder in your computer. Let's call it. I'm going to be creating counter. So in that counter, I'm going to open up VS Code. So let's have a new HTML file here. So index.html, then style.css, then script.js. So for index, so you get, I'll push this code later so you guys can have access to it. So you can just like try and follow along. Shift one, enter. So yeah, um, so you have shift one, enter, then it's, counter game. So we have counter game. So I'm just going to do some basic HTML. So we have a div, then we have a h3 which has 0. Let's see h2. Then we have a div. So and within that div we have a button. Then reset. So let's go reduce, increase. So reset. Then we have counts. So here for the H2, let's give this a class a font size of 30 pixels. So this is just basic HTML. I'm doing a font weight of 600. Then fitting display flex gap 16 pixels, align items center. So let's see how that looks now. If we can start. Okay. So I'm going to just continue. Place. I want to be like same person. Where it should be like it's specific. Okay. All sides. So yeah. So we have this simple text now. So I don't know. Are we still here? Leave a thumbs up if you are here. So we're going to be doing this simple. We're going to be building out this simple application where we have a counter where we can reduce the counter and increase the counter and reset it back to 0. So the counter initially is set at 0 pixels. It's set at 0. So whenever we click this plus button, it's supposed to increase it by 1. If we click the minus button, it's supposed to reduce it by 1. Then the reset to change it back to 0. So let us start that now. So first of all, we need to get our elements. So we say first of all let number be equal to document dot query selector, and we'll call it count. Let's call it number dot query selector count like this. But let's have a count here, and the count initially should be set at we'll set it initially at 0, right? Count. The next thing that we want to select is the reduce button. So let's reduce button be equal to documents dot query selector dot reduce like this. Increase. Then we have increase. Then we have a reset button. Reset. So that's reset like this. So this should be. So these are all the elements that we are going to be making use of. So now the first thing we should implement is this. The first thing that we should implement is displaying the counts. You know, right now we are displaying it as 0, but we want it to be set dynamically. So that means if you go back to our browser and refresh, there's nothing here initially, but we want it to be set to the count that is mentioned here. So the way we'll do that, we'll make use of what we thought about earlier, which is text content. So here we'll say number dot text content should be equal to count like this, right? So if you now refresh, you see that 0 has come back. The next thing that we're going to be doing is we're going to make use of the increase, the plus button first of all. It's not showing a pointer. So let's say cursor should be pointer. So that's by the way. So if you refresh, so the buttons now have a pointer on it. So now, so let's make use of this increase. So when this button is clicked, what should happen? When this button is clicked, we need this number to increase. So that means we need to listen for a click event on this particular button. And how do we do that? We use event listeners and event handlers, as we've talked about before. So we have increase button dot add event listener like this, right? And we're going to be listening to a click event. And when that click event is fired off, we want the function that does this. So what is the function meant to do? The first thing the function is meant to do is that it should set count. So count should be equal to count plus 1, like this. And if you remember what I spoke about last week, I said that whenever you have something like this, it's simpler to just do plus equal to 1. So it's basically the same thing. So the count should increase by that. Then we want to set the new text content to the new count that has been initialized. So if we save this already works for us. So if we refresh and if we click on this plus, you see that it is increasing like this, right? Now the next thing we should work on is the minus to reduce. So it follows the same fashion. So you have the decrease. So we have the reduce button dot add event listener. And we're going to be listening for a click event. It will have a function like this. Then we now set count minus equal to 1 like this. Then we set number. Somebody has a question. Okay, I don't know if I take. Okay, so the attendance form has been sent to the chat. So now we want the text content of the number element to be set to the new count like this. To be set to the new count. So to be set to the new count. So if you go back to our application, you can see that already works. So if you refresh this and if we add it, and we can see that the reduction works perfectly. But the problem we have with this reduction is that when we get to 0, it keeps on going minus. So we can set a little we can prevent that. So the way we will do that is that, so we'll say that before we reduce the count, we'll say if the current count is equal to 0, we want to return only. So okay, so we want to return. That means with this return, what does the return do? The return stops the execution of a function. So whenever a function hits a return statement, anything below that return is not counted again. It does not work. It doesn't continue the operation. So it does not reduce the count and it does not set a new text content. So if we refresh this and we refresh our page, if we click on reduce, you see that nothing happens. We can click, nothing happens because the count is currently at 0. But if we increase it and the reduction works. But once we get to 0, it does not go any further. So that is how we can. So you can see how event handling comes into place. The next thing we're going to be doing is the reset. The only thing that this reset button does is that it resets this whole thing to 0. That is basically what it does. So we have the reset button. So this reset button is equal to, so this reset button So we have reset button does add event listener. I'm going to be listening for a click here. Then we are going to have another function. So for this function, what we are basically, we are just setting the count to be back to 0. Then we still have this again. So if we refresh this page, and if we add number and we click on the reset, it changes back to 0. So this is how a basic application, this is like a very basic application where you can see how we can select elements and we can make use of event listeners in our application. So I don't know if there's any question from today's class so far. Is there any question on this particular application that we built? Profile, is it clear? David, Shama, Olayinka, Fatima, goodness. Is it clear? Okay. So if that is clear, we can build our main application for today, which is a number guessing game. So I'm also going to push this starter code for you. So you guys can just follow along for now. And if there's any question, you can let me know. So let me just arrange my, so we have this and this one. So for the number guesser, I think you can remove this now. Then I'm going to come. So for the number guesser, how is basically meant to work is that we have this input field here. At the beginning of the application, a random number is generated between 1 and 20. So I got this template online. So yeah, a number is generated at the beginning between 1 and 20. So whenever the page is loaded, a number is generated. So you are meant to guess the number that is generated. You will not know the number. So whenever you type in a number here, you can click on this check. This check button checks whether the number that you've guessed is correct or not. If it is not correct, you need to start. So if it's not correct, you need to guess again. So we also have this message here. This message will guide you. It either tells you maybe a number you've guessed is either correct or is too high or is too low. With that, you can make changes. Then you have a score and a high score here. So those are the features that we're going to be implementing for now. Then we have an again. Again is basically meant to restart the whole application for us. So this is what we are going to be building out for the remaining parts of the class. So let's start it. So the first feature we are going to be doing is generating the random number. Generating the number. So the way you do that is, so let's say we have secret number here like this. So we say let the secret number be equal to, we have a method called math.random. Math.random like this. But math.random only gives us numbers between 0 and 1. So if you do console.log secret number like this, and if we open our terminal, we go to our console, refresh. You see that this is the number. So if you refresh again, you see how the numbers come from 0 to 1. So we want it from 1 to 20. So the way you do it is that you put an asterisk here, asterisk 20, like this, asterisk 20. So if you refresh it, you can see that we then have, so we can see that it's now increasing. But the problem with this also is that it gives us from 0 to 19. It doesn't really give us 20. So the way you can make it sure that it gives us from 1 to 20 is by adding 1 to it. So math of random times 20 plus 1, like this. So this gives us from 1 to 20. Then if we refresh the page, so we have from 1 to 20. But the problem now that we have is that we have this excess. So we see we have 20 here finally. But the problem that we have is that we have these excess decimal places which we don't need. So to remove the excess decimal places, you make use of mass.trunc, which truncates or removes out those extra decimal places. So we have math.trunc. So this is a very common thing that you'll be doing in your JavaScript learning. The applications where you'll be building that you need to generate random numbers. So this is a very common thing you will see where to generate a number. So if you want to generate a number between 1 and 100, you multiply by 100 plus 1. So that is how it works. So if you save this and you refresh, you see that now we have whole numbers from 1 to 20. So we have 20 here, 3, 7, 17, and so on. 1 to 20 complete for us that we can make use of. So now that is the first thing that we've done. We generated a secret number. Someone has a question. If I
Can you please explain that part again, please? The math dot trunk and the math dot what was it?
okay.
Yeah.
So what does maths or trunk do? You know how normally in school we have how this if we have a number that is 34.98888 like this, what math.trunc does is that it takes away the decimal part of the number and leaves us with 34. If we have 2.56 like this, math.trunc removes this decimal place and leaves us with 2. That's what it does. Then what does math.random do? Math.random basically generates a number for us from 0 to 1. But we don't want from 0 to 1. We want from 1 to 20. So the way you do that is that you do math.random asterisk 20. That gives us from 0 to 20. But it doesn't even give us from 0 to 20. It gives us from 0 to 19. So if you want it from 0 to 20, you then add a plus 1 like this, plus 1. So that gives us from 1 to 20. Then you wrap everything with math.trunc. So that removes the decimal place from for us. So that is basically how it works. Is that clarify?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So we've implemented the first thing, which is to get our secret number. Secret number. So what's the next feature? So for now, we want let's try and display the secret number here. So it will aid us as we are developing the game. Then we can remove it towards the end. So we want it to be displayed here. And let's look for that in our HTML. So in our HTML, so we have this. So this is where it is being displayed under the number class. So the way we'll do that is that we'll say let number, or we'll just say documents dot query selector. So we say let number be equal to documents dot query selector dot number, like this, dot number, right? So we have number dot text content. we want to set it to secret number like this. So if we go and we refresh our page, I think we have a problem. Text content.
The text content is supposed to carry equal to.
It's supposed to carry what?
Equal to. I don't think you need to wrap it in a
Away. So,
yes, that place. Number of text content is equals to secret number.
okay, sorry. I think I just so equal to secret number like this. So if you refresh it, you see that we have 2, 16, 1, 7. So we can use this for now. So now the next feature we want to do is this check. We want to implement the check function. So and that check function is triggered whenever this is clicked. So in our HTML we have the button check here. So let's select that. So we say documents dot query selector dot check like this dot add event listener. So I'm going to be listening for a click, and when that click is made, we want this function to be run. We want this function to run. So let's get this message elements. So let's get this message element. So let's say let message be equal to documents dot query selector dot message like this. The message. So we have an if. So first of all, if then we need the input that is gotten from this input field. So let's see, let's guess be equal to documents dot query selector dot guess. So how do we get the value of an input field? We have text content, but for input fields they're a bit different. So we need to use dot value instead. So we'll say if guess dot value is equal to secret number. First of all, this value is that gotten from here is going to be as a string, because any input in a input field is going to it's not really a string, because we already set the type here to number, so it is a number. So if guess the value is equal to secret number, what do we want to do? We want the message dot text content to be equal to u1 like this. Want it to be equal to u1. So now let's see if that works. So the secret number is 1. So if we click on 1 here and do check, that's not working for some reason. So let me just who raised his hand? And yeah, Obed. Hello, Obed, I'm hearing you. Hello, Obed, do you have any question? Okay, I didn't refresh the page. Obed, do you have a question? Okay.
So, sir,
So
continue.
So yeah, it actually comes as a text, as a string. So I was right. You need to convert this to a number. So the way you convert it to a
Yes,
number,
that's what I want to tell.
yeah. So you do this, you use this number, the number function. So if you refresh it and try and get 17, if you check, you see that you one is displayed here. So the text has been changed, right? So now, so now we have other test cases. So what if, so else if, so else if instead of this number, what we could just do, we can just use plus, the plus icon. So that does type coercion for us. So we guess it here and check. You see that it's still the same thing. So we have else if plus guess the value. If our guess is greater than the secret number, we want the text content. We want the text content to be too high, like this, too high. So let's use another image here. Emoji high. Um, oh, we'll say is too high. So if we come here and we refresh our page, if we guess maybe 16, we'll see that our text here has changed to too high. That means what we've guessed is too high. So if we come back and we maybe we do 11, we see that we won. So our application is coming together, and it's gradually coming together. So the next thing that we have, in case maybe it is less than, so we need to display too low. So we say else if plus guess the value. What time is your class? So if plus guess the value is less than secret number, we want the message to show too low, like this. There may be like this. So too low. So if we refresh our page and we guess maybe 4, you see that we have too low. So we've implemented that. The next thing we want to implement is that whenever you guess wrongly, your score is meant to reduce. So this is the next thing that we need to do. Your score is meant to reduce whenever you guess wrongly. And currently the score is set at 20, and which is set manually. So we need to, apart from our secret number, we need to set let score be equal to 0. Then let's also set let high score also equal to 0, right? Or no, no, the score should be equal to 20. So score is equal to 20. Then score is equal to 20. Then um let's call container. Let's call this score container. Score container is equal to documents dot query selector score, like this. Document dot query selector score. and initially okay. And initially we want the score container to have a text content of score. So this should be the initial text content should be score. That is 20. So if we refresh the page, um, so it doesn't work. Okay, dot score. Sorry. So if we refresh the page, so we have 20. So whenever whenever we guess wrongly, let's say we guess 11 here, the score is meant to reduce. So how do we reduce that? So we reduce that in this our events listener here. So whenever the value is greater than secret number, we want the score container dot text content should be equal to the new score. But we need to reduce that score. So we say score minus equal to 1 like this. So that score reduces. And it's the same thing that we are going to do when it is a bit when it is too low. So if we refresh our page and let's say we guess 2, you see our score reduces to 19. If we guess again and maybe we guess 8, the score reduces. The score reduces again. But if we guess 1, the score still remains the same. So that is how the score. So that's how we can implement the score. The next thing we want to implement is the high score. So how the high score works is that, for example, if I guess on the first try, maybe I guess 20, the high score is meant to change to 20. But if I guess wrongly, maybe like 6, 19, and I guess again 6, and I finally guess 20, the high score is meant to be 13. You get, so that's how the high score works. So the high score. So we're going to say that when we've guessed correctly, we'll then say we'll say if the current high score is less than the score, we want to set the high score to be score. So this is basically how you do it. So we have a nested if block. So let's try again. So if we say, let's say we guess 4, and we finally guess 11. Okay, so we need to set the text content of score. So we say documents dot query selector so let's say let's high score container should be equal to documents dot query selector dot high score. Right? Is that how this spells it? Yeah, dot high score. Document dot query selector dot high score. So initially we want the high score container. High score. The high score container dot text content should be equal to high score. Right? So that's what it should be initially. So we're saying that so now when the high score is less than the current score, we want that high score container dot text content should be equal to, we'll set it to high score like this. So if we come back and we refresh, and let's say we guess 4 wrong like this, then we finally guess 11. So our high score is currently 10, right? So now, our high score is currently 10. So if we go again, so after um so after we've won, we need to generate a new number. I don't know. Sorry, is there any questions so far on what we've been doing? Is there any question? Please just give me some minutes. I'm trying to move some other location. Just give me some minutes. I'm coming. Sure. I'll be. Uh-huh. Okay, please, I'm back. Can you guys hear me? Can everyone hear me? Mhm. So yeah. Since there's no question, now whenever we get a new number, we want there to be a refresh in the secret number. So the way that would work is that immediately after we won, we want the secret number to be set to we want the secret number to be set to this. Or no. Once a new secret number, right? Then I'm coming. I'm coming. Then we want number dot text content to be set to a new secret number like this. That's after we've won. So if we refresh our page and we check for 4, a new number is supposed to pop up. So I think we have did I refresh? So we're supposed to have a new number. Okay, yeah. So we have a new number. Immediately we win. So yeah, as I was saying, let's try our high score out. So if we eventually get the correct number, so we win, and our high score is set at 13. But if we guess immediately the next time, we want okay. So after that, our score is meant to go back to 20. So immediately we win, our score is meant to go back to 20. Our score is meant to go back to 20. So we need to reset that again. Um, So we need score to go back to 20, and our score content to also come here like this. So we need to try that again. So you see, when developing, you face a lot of bugs. You face a lot of bugs, but you have to just continue. So it's not really as straightforward. So now we have a new high score of 19. So if we guess correctly now, our high score is meant to change. So we have a new high score of 20. So let's just refresh. Let us do two. Let's have a low high score at first. So if we do 17 here and we check, our high score is set to 7. But if we check again and let's say we guess correctly at our 13th try, our new high score is going to be set to 13. So that is how it works. So I don't know, is there any questions so far on what we've done? So basically, all we've done is basically the same thing: text, content, um, text content, and so on, conditionals. So does anybody have any question on what we've done so far? If I
Yes, sir. Can you like that you explain how you did the high score? So it's somehow confusing. Sorry.
you say what?
The high score of a thing that you just did, setting the high score.
We setting the high score.
Yes,
Okay.
like so that it will show the this thing instead of it showing the same number before.
Okay. So I said if at whenever we guess correctly, right? Whenever we guess correctly, we want to check if the high score is less than the score than the current score. So normally, so like let me show you how we do. So currently now our score is 14 and our high score is 0. So if whenever we win and the high score is less than the score, we want the high score to take the score number. So if we check it, because 0 is lower than 14, the new high score is going to be set at 14. That is basically what this does. So we say that the high score should be set to score, and the high score container text content should be set to high score. So that is how it works. Then after that, we then generate a new secret number, and we have a number dot text content a secret number. Then the score is reset back to 20. So that's basically what happens. Exactly.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So that is basically. So now, like the next thing we're going to be talking about is how to manipulate styles. How to manipulate style. How to manipulate styles in this thing. So whenever you guess correctly, two things are meant to happen. The width of this box is meant to increase, and the background of this body is meant to change. So if you go to our style.css, so yeah, so whenever we guess correctly, the background is meant to change to this particular color. So under this, we want um the body. So we do documents does queries selector body does style does background the background color should be set to this. So let's try that. But we have another thing that's supposed to increase. And that is the number. So the number is supposed to increase to 30. Sorry, I'm coming. Just give me a minute. Just give me a minute, guys. Sorry for that interruption. So we want this number to increase its width to 30 pixels to 30 rem. So so we want the number, that number dot style dot width. So you notice that we also use camel casing for the attribute that we want to change, the style attributes we want to change. So number dot style dot width should be set to 30 rem. So this is how you can manipulate style in this is how you can manipulate style in JavaScript. So if we restart and we check to, okay, this doesn't work for some reason. Let me querySelector. Okay, we didn't put this in quotation like this. Body. So let's try it again. So yeah, so you see that it works out. So we see that the background has changed and this width has changed. So this is how you can manipulate style also in JavaScript. So you see that you won and your score and high score has increased. So now let's do this. So let's try this again. What does the again do? The again basically resets. It doesn't reset our high score. It resets our score. Okay, so we've been doing something wrong. So in this block, we don't need to. Somebody have a question. So it's something we can do. Instead of resetting the secret number and the score here, we can just abstract it out of here. Please, can you mute your mic? Bolaji. Hello?
Ah, sorry.
Okay, so as I was saying, instead of doing our resetting here, we can remove all of this from here and just attach it to this particular button here. So this button will restart our application for us. So we can just remove this like this. So let's have the again button. So for the again button, we have this again button. So we have again button dot add event listener, click function like this. So again button add event listener. So what did we want to do again? So whenever this again button is clicked, the first thing that we want to do is that we want to change this background back to its original color. So the way you do that is you say documents dot query selector body like this dot style dot background color should be equal to this. to our original column. The next thing that we want to do is that we want to set the score. Score should be set back to 20. Then we want the score container dot text content go back to score, right? But the high score should remain the same. Then we also want this input field to go. This input field should should be empty, but we don't need to do that here. We can just do it directly here. So the way you do it directly here is that you can just set the you can set guess the value should be set to an empty string like this. So if you check, if you maybe 17 and you check, so you check like this. So the input field, so we need to refresh. So if we refresh our button here and click on 13 and we check, you see that we have won, and you see that the input field has gone immediately. So now if you click on this again, okay, this so that's not the correct sorry, that's not the correct background. So this is the correct background. So the background should be set to this. So if we set 9 and we check, so if you click on this again, you see that background has been changed back, but the secret number has not been generated. So we need to create a brand new secret number. So we say secret number should be equal to number dot trunk again, the number dot random asterisk 20 plus 1 like this. Then we say secrets. Then we say number dot text content should be set to the new secret number. So let's try that. If we do 9 and we check, and if we so that doesn't work. So this number. Okay, it's maths dot trunk, not number. So maths dot trunk, maths dot random. So maths dot trunk, maths dot random. So if you refresh it and still go back again, so we have 9 and we check. So you won. So if you refresh it, we have a brand new number. But we need to also reset. We need to reset the message here. So again, under this reset, after setting the new score, we need to say message dot text content should be equal to start guessing. I think that should be the last. That should be the last reset that we need. So if we get 13 here and we check, you won. So if you click on the again, we have a new secret number, the message has been reset, and the score has been reset, and the input field has been cleared. So this is basically, I think we are done with all our functionality. So we need to test out everything. So let me give us a rundown of how it works. So the first thing is that whenever the page loads, a secret number is being displayed to us, right? And normally it's not even supposed to be displayed to us. It's not supposed to be displayed. But for now, I'm going to just show it as being displayed. So we need to guess the number. Assuming the number has not been displayed. Assuming we guess 5, we see that 5 is too low. because 7 is greater than 5. So let's try 8. We check. We said it's right, and our score has been reduced because we've guessed wrong 2 times. So our current score is 18. So let's say we guess 6. We check. We see it's still too low. So that means the number should be 7. So if you check it, you see that the background has changed color, the size has increased. We have a new message of you've won. Our score is 17, and our new high score is at 17 now. So what we want to try, so we click on this again button like this. When the again button is being clicked, our number has been reset. Our new secret number has been generated for us. Then we can start guessing. Our score has been reset, and our high score still remains the same. So let's say we guess 2 initially. We see that it's too high. So that means we can check 1. And if we check it, you see that our high score has increased from 17 to 19, right? And we can again. So we see that everything works perfectly. So the next thing we need to do now is to hide our secret number. So let us go back to our HTML, and instead of, so it's actually in our JavaScript. So instead of setting our text content to secret number, we can remove this control X. So the only time the number should be revealed is when we got it correctly. So we can do that here. So we set the number the text content to secret number. So secret number, that is the only time it should be reset. And whenever we click on the again button, we want the text content to go back. We want the text content to go back to question mark like this. So let us try it finally. So now we don't know the number, so we need to guess. So if we check, if see it's too low, let's say we have 15. It's still too low. Let's say 18. It's still too low. 19. It's still too low. So the number should be 20. So it works. So the number is now revealed to us. Then our score and high score is set. Then we can try again. So after trying again, you see that 14 is green. So we have a bug somewhere. So the bug is here. We still set the text content to secret number. So we need to remove that here. And I think that should be also, if we guess 13, it's still too high. 12. So the number is 12. So if we refresh, so everything works perfectly now. So this is how the application works. So let's go through the code base again. So the first thing that we did was that we generated a secret number, which we use JavaScript methods to get. So we generated a random number from 0 to 1. Then we multiplied it by 20 so that we can get it from 0 to 19. But we want 1 to 20, so that's why we added this plus 1. So this is how you generate a number in JavaScript. The next thing that we did, we initialized our initial score to be 20, and our high score is set at 0. Then we selected all the elements that we are going to be making use of in this application, such as the number, the message, the guess, the score container, high score container, and the game button. And we made use of the query selector for all of these. Then we set the text content of some of these elements, such as the score container and high score container, which is this and this, which is this and this, right? And the next thing we did was that we placed an event listener. We placed an event listener here for this check button to check whether our guess was correct or not, right? So now, in this event listener, we have, in case, what if our value, what we got was correct? In situation where maybe we guessed correctly, we wanted the text content to be changed to secret number, and we wanted a new message to be displayed here. Then also we wanted to change the background color. So that's how we did all of this here. Then we also increased the width here. So I don't know, the width is currently high. Okay. So yeah, so we can see that we have another bulb. When we click on it again, our width still remains at 30 rem. So we need to change that back. So you see, this is how you can, so this is how you debug and you test your application to make sure everything still works perfectly. So we need to change this back to 15 rem like this. So that is what this does. Then we set the value to empty string. Then with this, and this if block is used to set a new high score, if any. So if the high score is less than score, we set the new high score to be the score, and we edit the text content. Then we have these two else if here. So for this else if, so if the value is greater than secret number, we need a new text content to be too high, and the score should be reduced, and the score container the text content should change. The same thing with this. But you notice something, you notice that these two blocks, they look exactly the same. The only difference between these two blocks is this line and this line. So it's better if, so there's a principle called do not repeat yourself in programming. So if there's a way you can combine two code blocks together, it is better. So the way we could manipulate this is that we could comment this out. So the basic thing we are checking here is if the value is different from the secret number. So what we just do is that else if like this, we say plus guess the value is not equal to secret number, right? What we just want to do is that we want to set message dot text content like this equal to, but instead of doing equal to, we'll use a ternary operator where we'll say guess the value. So we'll say guess the value. If guess the value is greater than secret number, that is when we want to now display this text too high here. If not, we want to display too low like this. Then we can now set the score and the high score. Then we can just do this instead. So you see how we combine these two blocks into one. So this is like a common technique in programming. So in situations where you have repeated code, you have to find a way to combine them together to make it more simpler and easier to read. So this is basically all the logic of this game that we've created. So I know it's a lot. So thankfully the call has been recorded. So it's something that you can go over again. And maybe parts that you don't understand in the next class, you can ask questions regarding that. So is there any question so far on this application that we've built? Asma. Hello, Asma, you can talk.
Mistake. I'm not raising my hand.
What?
I'm not raising my hand. It's mistake.
Okay. So does anybody have any question? That other guy is not around again. So yeah. So that is basically all for today. So today we've learned about introduction to DOM manipulation, where we learned how to select elements based on the class, tag names, and IDs. They learned how to manipulate text content, inner HTML, and so on. Then we also built two applications. We built a counter contract, a counter application, and a number guessing application. So that's basically the introduction to DOM manipulation. So I hope you guys really enjoyed the class and you're able to get a lot from it. So is there any question or Anything you want me to go over? So yeah, if there's no question, we can call it a day. So thank you guys for coming. Till Thursday.
Please,
Bye.
hello,
Yeah.
Aisha Kabir, don't forget, please DM me on WhatsApp. Thank you.
Okay.
Take care.